it was 420, and I did have some clear time, so I headed down to the Trent State House to see some old friends and some enemies and smoke a little weed and maybe make a little trouble. And when I first got down there, I started out, I brought about a half ounce of grass with me, and I meant to stop somewhere and get some little containers so I could give out, the buds to some friends and people on the street or whatever. And unfortunately, the place where I stopped to get some containers was closed. So I walked up to the State House and I just started handing out some buds, and it was nice. A lot of people came out of the woodwork, and a lot of people were really happy to get some free weed on 420. So that was fun, and I made some friends that way. By the time I had gotten to the State House and saw the Sativa Cross that works out in New Jersey as an advocacy group, had a little bit of a session in front of the State House. It was more or less of the corporate cannabis scene, although I don't want to offend anybody that was there that is a grassroots activist, because there's a mix of people there. But I did see, some people that are trying to get into the licensing programs and set their way into this new market where we have legalized cannabis in New Jersey. And then, it was very corporate. There wasn't even a lot of people smoking weed. I felt like I was the only one smoking a joint out there. I mean, I did do a couple of dabs with some friends, and I hung around for about an hour, but it really, they had some music going, but I went around, saw everybody was, hawking their CBD wares and selling their kind of legal products, and advocacy groups were there as well. And so it was okay. So I spent about an hour there, and I kind of got bored with the scene. So said goodbye to the comrades and marched down the street to a black market pop-up where they sell, weed out in the open. And it was really nice. It was an outdoor setup, and they had some tables set up, and there were vendors selling different forms of cannabis and edibles and blunts and pre-rolls and all kinds of stuff. It was really a lot like what I'm used to in my new home state of Maine, or what you see in maybe California, Colorado, Oregon, and these states where there's a lot of products, and this is all illegal stuff. But, I took a look around to observe the marketplace, of course, for journalistic purposes. And, I had a good time. I smoked some weed with some more comrades and hung out for way longer than an hour. And I had something to eat and took in some good music, and we laughed, and it was nice to catch up. And it was just a way different experience than the one I had a few blocks down at the kind of political corporate gig, right? So I kind of had like this view of these two worlds of cannabis that are forming around us as we get into legalization. And it was a very interesting few hours of my life, because it was almost like being in two worlds for one day, and it really started to crystallize for me the difference between what potheads want in legalization and what people that use cannabis for medical purposes want, and what this government and what the corporations who are controlling legalization want, because they're two very different things. And one of these arguments out there, and you probably heard this even from some lefty circles, that we can't call cannabis marijuana anymore. And I get this. This guy Anslinger, who initiated prohibition years ago, did in fact use the term marijuana to associate with Mexican immigrants and associate that with crime and bad activity. It was used. It does have racist roots. It's true. So I can't argue with history. But I've been reading that we can use it when we use the term medical marijuana. So you can still use it if you call it medical marijuana. And the only other acceptable term is cannabis. Now, this is the corporate mantra now. If you look and when you look at branding and you hear the people and you look carefully at who's doing this is kind of being put out by people. Why? We want to change the culture, right? What's the point of, changing what we term, what the terms that we use? The point, the language is intended for them to take over that culture by using their own language, by using their own terminology. And they've deemed cannabis as the only term that you can use and be acceptable in society. And then they can claim that term and use it for their marketing purposes, right? But, we all know, those of us that smoke pot, call it marijuana, weed, grass, ganja. We've got devil's lettuce, bud, chronic reefer, skunk, Mary Jane. We've all crawled our drug dealer and asked for some weird shit like, hey, man, I need to get some notebooks or Yankees tickets, or I need to buy a bottle of water. We've all got our codes, right? So pot has been called just about every fucking thing on the face of this earth. But what we're really seeing, in these two worlds is the idea that, we can only use certain acceptable terms. And it's ridiculous. You see this between the two worlds, right? And on the corporate side, on the legalization side, they have a very, very big need to maintain both the police and the corporate state. They, through their regulations and their economic policies and all this kind of stuff, they are refusing to diminish police power. They are not. In fact, they're on the opposite side of social justice, despite what they put out in their PR and despite their statements to the contrary. They can say they're for social justice all they want. But we all know that a large corporation like Curaleaf, which is run by scumbags, only seeks profit. They don't seek a better product. They don't seek social justice. That's not what a corporation gets together. A bunch of rich white dudes don't get together and say, let's help black men out of prison. When the fucking history has that ever happened? You think a bunch of large corporations run by wealthy white people out of Wall Street have got social justice on their mind first? They've got profit on their mind first. They're capitalists, man. Well, what does the pothead want? What do we want? What are the people that use this product? We want cheap weed. We want good, cheap weed. We want to be able to grow our own weed. The world we want is more closely associated and even goes further than like the craft brewer market, where you can buy your own barley and hops and make your own stuff in your basement. I want to be able to grow my own seed. I want to grow my own plants, make my own hybrids. Screw with genetics. Garden, just like I do with tomatoes or grapes or raspberries or anything else that we can garden legally in the world. Corporate world wants me to go to a store, pay $60 to $75 an eighth plus tax. And if I go outside that system, they're going to lock me up and maybe even lock me up longer than they would have before legalization. Because some of these laws that are passing include stricter laws on black market cannabis. Not easier ones. And none of them are talking about taking out our comrades out of prison. Oh, well, maybe they're talking about it. But that's about all they're going to do, right? This strict control by them, it isolates and it condenses this market, and ultimately it hurts everybody. And it hurts something that's near and dear to me as well as science. And one of the things I've been trying to bring up more and more when I talk about cannabis is not just the social justice aspect, which to me is the number one priority in this, and making sure that our comrades get out of prison is number one in all this. But also on that list of important shit is the lack of medical research and the lack of legitimate science done on the magic herb. It's got medicinal properties, but I'm always hesitant to tell people that, hey, man, this stuff helps pain, this helps that, this helps this, because I don't know the science behind it, and there's not many doctors into it. And you've kind of got to self-medicate, which I think of as dangerous. Even though you can't die, you can't overdose, and listen, ain't nothing wrong with smoking a joint if you like smoke weed. I'm just saying, if you're using it as medicine, I would much rather have a large, wide open world of experimentation and legitimate science done unrestrained by stupid laws telling me what kind of cannabis is best for my condition and creating new medicine. New ways of treating different diseases. It's out there. It's been proven that it can be more. We've already seen plenty of research into both CBD and THC and THCA and all that different kind of stuff out there. There's so many different, different letters. I probably can't get into all of them today. But, I mean, we already know that there is medicinal properties. We should know more. But prohibition's got to end. It's got to also end in the right way. Because the way we're ending it in most of these states, and what I fear is when Joe Biden gets wind of this, because I don't think he's heard that pot's legal yet. I'm not even sure if he's ever heard the term pot. He's just catching up on a lot. So, we'll see. But my fear is, the model being put forth in these states was a dangerous one. I just want to make some of these problems even worse. And so what's the point of legalization if we continue to exacerbate these social justice issues and putting people in prison? There's no point. Might as well just go, as New Jersey Weed Man says, go, he's selling weed like he's white. He's got a reality show. He's opening up new places in Florida. I mean, he's telling you to just break the law. And people are going to continue to take that attitude and do those things unless you legalize correctly. And by my standards and by most pothead standards, they're fucking it up. But, what else is new? What else is new?